Welcome to Sola Church Online.
I'm Alan Rigg. This is my wife, Miranda Landers, and together we lead Sola Church, a life-giving church in Santa Monica, California.
We meet in person and online on Sundays at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Our in-person service is held indoors at Joslyn Park Auditorium, which is at 633 Kensington Road.
Yeah, if you're here in the west side, you gotta come check out an in-person service. But we are also thrilled to bring you this pre-recorded online service, which can be found on our website, solachurch.life, as well as on Facebook and YouTube. That's at Sola Church LA.
And we have a great service for you today. Let's worship.
Power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty. Blessed be your name when the sun's shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name on the road marked with suffering, though there's pain in the offering. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Give and take away. Give and take away. Heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name.
This is that time in our service when we worship with our giving. If you're just checking us out, please don't feel obligated to give. But if Sola Church is your church home, or Sola Church Online has just been a blessing to you, it's super easy to make a one-time tax-deductible donation or even to schedule a recurring gift.
The easiest way is to scan the QR code on your screen, but you can always go to solachurch.life and click the tab at the top that says Give.
As always, we're so thankful to you for your generosity. That's what makes it possible for us to do what we do, and just grateful for everyone standing with us during this difficult time of year. We know God's got us. It encourages us that you guys got us, like together we can do this. It's a blessing.
Let's get into our time of teaching.
So let's turn in the Bible to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. This is it. This is the series finale of Love is All You Need. 4 weeks to improve every relationship in your life. So how's it going? Are your relationships improving? They can be, and they should be, because love can make a bad relationship good and can make a good relationship great. So over the last couple of weeks, we've learned that God's love can make us patient and kind and content and secure and humble. We've learned that God's love can make us polite and others-centered and easygoing and forgiving and joyful. And today we get 5 more. Are you ready for this? Are you ready to wrap this thing up together? All right, so number 1, God's love can make you protective. Look at we're going to look at verse 7, but let's start reading in verse 4. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. And so where we pick up today, as we talk about how God's love can make you protective, Well, look at verse 7, bears all things. You see that phrase, all things? It actually appears 4 times in verse 7. We kind of wish it said some things. We could live with it if it said many things. We might get by if it said most things, but all things, come on. The Greek adjective translated all things can refer to all things individually, as in each and everything, or all things collectively, as in some of all types of things. So either way, the idea here is that, we may all be able to bear some things, believe some things, hope some things, endure some things, but the way of love calls us to something more. The Greek verb translated bears means to cover, even to conceal. When it's used as a noun, it refers to a roof. 3 times in the New Testament, it appears as a noun. Translated roof, all 3 times. So love acts as a roof over other people, shielding them from the storms of life. Maybe that's why the NIV translates this phrase that love always protects, which is where I get the name for this point, that God's love can make you, protective or protectful. So bears all things. It suggests a bunch of stuff. Like it suggests that we protect others by sticking up for them. It means that their reputation is safe in our hands, that we keep confidences, that we have nothing to do with gossip. I mean, think of verses like these. Think of Proverbs 10, verse 12, where it says that love covers all sins. Or Proverbs 17, verse 9, where it says, he who covers a transgression seeks love. Or 1 Peter 4, verse 8, where it says, and above all things have fervent love for one another, for love will cover a multitude of sins. Quoting Proverbs 10, verse 12. Now, of course, the problem is that when it comes to this phrase or this verse or any other of these verses, that they can be weaponized. And sometimes, people would use this verse to mean that we can never tell our story, or that we can never, ever talk about issues that we may have with other people. The fact is, there are times that we can't tell our story without exposing other people. And I think of that Anne Lamott quote that I've shared before. You own everything that happened to you. Tell your stories. If people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think too about how abusers are quick to get ahead of the story and control the narrative. And then they or their allies will shame, shush, or shun anyone who speaks truth. Well, none of that was Paul's intent. When we think about Paul's intent, well, we could think about like in a romantic relationship. We could think about, a couple, and where they want to build each other up in the eyes of other people. If you are in a relationship, when you talk about your partner, others should think more of them and not less of them. Or you think even about how as parents, sometimes people expose their kids in ways that don't feel good at all. To me, when I hear them do it, and certainly not to their kids, I mean, maybe exposing mistakes that they've made or talking about their weaknesses. As parents, we want to champion the strengths of our children while protecting their weaknesses. So again, part of the idea here is that we protect others by sticking up for them. But bears all things also suggests that we protect others by siding with them. Now, I don't necessarily mean siding with them against others, but I mean in the sense of coming alongside of them. So we're talking now about care and concern. We're talking about empathy and sympathy. We're talking about having understanding. There's a saying that shared joy is a double joy. Shared sorrow is half a sorrow. I like that. Another saying just like it goes, love multiplies joy and divides sorrow. So are you multiplying others' joy and dividing their sorrows? There's that verse we've talked about many times, even recently, Romans 12, verse 15. It says, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. I think we have too little of both. There's certainly more weeping than there is rejoicing, but we need both. We need more of both. So bears all things also suggests that we protect others by standing by them. Charles Swindoll talks about a poster he saw with a prayer on it. And here's what the poster said. A prayer to be said when the world has gotten you down and you feel rotten, and you're too doggone tired to pray, and you're in a hurry, and besides, you're mad at everybody. Help. That's it. That's the prayer. One word. Help. But too often, we don't ask for help, right? Too often, we're like those that are like, oh, I got it. I'm cool. It's all good. We don't ask for help, but the truth is we need to. The truth is we need each other. You know, you see this a lot in team sports. You see how the team can't thrive without teamwork and how even the best players need the support of other players. I mean, we're taping this on a Friday. By the time it premieres on Sunday, the Lakers will almost certainly have been swept by the Denver Nuggets in the first round of the NBA playoffs. And a big part of the reason, man, the stars aren't getting any help from the supporting cast. Like LeBron and Anthony Davis, man, they cannot do it all by themselves. There's like nobody else consistently scoring or making plays. But it's kind of like this in life too. Someone translates this phrase in this verse, the love gets under the load of life and helps others to bear it. That's so good. George Herbert, the 17th century English poet and priest, said, friendship makes a fair day out of storms and tempests, a calm even in the midst of sorrow, and a pleasure that is not mixed with regret. So we see the protectiveness of love. Ask yourself, am I protective of others? God's love can make you protective. Number two, God's love can make you trustful. Look again at verse 7. It says that love believes all things. Now, the Greek verb translated believes means to have faith in, to trust. It doesn't mean that love is blind, as we often say. It doesn't mean that we are to be gullible or that we are to be naive. You know, the truth is that there are untrustworthy people in the world, and some of them make no secret of us. I think of that Maya Angelou saying, when people tell you who they are, believe them. How many of you have learned that the hard way? Yeah, me too. But Paul's idea is that we not be cynical or suspicious, like when everyone and everything is sus. We know that there's a problem. Now, you know, for a moment, let's just acknowledge that paranoia is a thing. And so if someone is struggling with paranoia, somewhere on the spectrum from mild to severe paranoia, I mean, you know, I would urge you to seek professional help for assessment and support. But Paul is just talking about the kind of thing that any one of us may struggle with at any time. And so, you know, I mean, we need to believe people, certainly until they give us reason not to. We need to be quicker to believe than to berate. We need to not be distrustful, but to be trustful. Believes all things suggests that we trust others by believing the best about them. Some of us, if we're honest, are predisposed to believe the worst. Like we read into every little thing. We assume that we know what other people are thinking or feeling, and it's so dangerous. Because you know what happens in relationships is sometimes like one person says or does something innocently, and the other person automatically assumes the worst, and they think that person was being mean to them. So they're mean to that person. The problem is that person wasn't being mean. They did what they did or said what they said innocently. And so from their perspective, that person is being mean to them. And so now they're mean back. And now you've got this thing, right? I mean, now you've got two people who are arguing, two people who are fighting. And eventually they'll stop arguing about what it is they're arguing about, and they'll just be arguing about who started it. It's a terrible cycle. But this is what happens when we make assumptions. We have to avoid that. Believes all things suggests that we trust others by erring on the side of grace. Always the best policy, to err on the side of grace. It means that we give people the benefit of the doubt. It means that we don't jump to conclusions. It means that we consider their motive. They meant well. It means that we make allowance for failure, like I've been there, done that. It means that we appreciate effort, like at least they tried. Believes all things suggests that we trust others by seeking to restore trust when it's been broken. Restoration is always the goal. It isn't always possible, but it's always the goal to restore trust, to get back to that place where we can say to someone, I trust you. You have my confidence. I believe in you. You know, sometimes it's our own baggage that makes it hard for us to drop our guard. It could be that something happened to you that has left you, understandably, deeply distrustful of other people. But we've got to be open to deeper emotional connections. We've got to be prepared to let go of the past. So we see the trustfulness of love. Ask yourself, am I trustful of others? God's love can make you protective. God's love can make you trustful. Number 3, God's love can make you hopeful. Look again at verse 7. It says that love hopes all things. The Greek verb translated hopes means to expect with desire. It's not I hope so, but I know so and I can't wait. Someone called this the optimism of love. Now, this hope necessarily follows belief. And that's the order in which we find it here. It necessarily follows belief. Often, it's love believing all things that makes it possible to hope all things. Now, granted, there are times when our belief proves wrong. When we trusted someone and it turns out to have been misguided and misinformed and misplaced, when in spite of love believing all things, it hasn't panned out the way we had hoped that it would. The best that we believed, hasn't worked out. But that's precisely when we need to be able to fall back on hope. That's when we need hope the most, rather than hopelessness. Hopes all things suggests that we never give up on life. That point where it's like, what's the point? It isn't worth it. The hope of love makes it possible for us to see impossibilities as possibilities, to see possibilities and opportunities, to turn opportunities into accomplishments. Hopes all things suggests that we never give up on people. Now, that doesn't mean, again, I've got to qualify some of these, that doesn't mean that we don't have boundaries. And that doesn't mean that we don't distance ourselves from toxic people. There's a difference between forgiveness, which we talked about last week, and reconciliation. Reconciliation takes 2, forgiveness takes 1. So you and I can forgive in the sense that we can unilaterally let go of the sense that they owe us. But it takes 2 people to reconcile. So it may not be possible if they're not willing. And under some circumstances, it's not even desirable. But in general, relationships are challenging. And this is what Paul is talking about. Anyone who thinks that relationships aren't challenging doesn't have any. I'm not talking about all different kinds of relationships. But with regard to marriage, I think about how, like in high school, I had this group of 6 friends, me and 5 other guys. Of the 6 of us, 5 of us married. And of those 5, 4 of us, including me, have divorced. Relationships are hard. Like, I get losing hope. I understand hopelessness. Again, I'm not thinking just of marriage, though. We can be hopeless about any or all of the relationships in our lives. Elbert Hubbard, the American writer and humorist, said a pessimist is a person who blows out the light to see how dark it is. Oh, man. Is that you? Is that you in relationships? Love makes it possible for us to hope even when others have given up hope. The hope of love allows us to see potential in people. I love how this plays out in the Bible, like with Jesus in particular. We've talked about it before, but it's been a while. You think about Jesus with the 12. Jesus chose these 12 men to be not only disciples, but to be his apostles. And he did this after praying all night. You wonder what went wrong when you look at the guys that he chose. But the truth is that Jesus saw what others didn't see in them. And he saw what they may not have even seen in themselves. And that's so enabling. Like for you and for me, when we can see things in other people that others don't see in them, when we can see things in them that they don't even see in themselves, that empowers them in the most remarkable way. Well, potential or lack thereof. I mean, like, who has failed you? Who has let you down? We can all point to one or more people. And as I said already, there are times when we simply have to distance ourselves from toxic people and toxic relationships. But we can probably all think of times when we've been too quick to write people off. Hopes all things suggests that we never give up on God. You know, nothing is too difficult for God. Genesis 18, verse 14, God asks Abraham, is anything too hard for me? Obviously, the answer is no. In Jeremiah 32, verse 17, Jeremiah says to God, there is nothing too hard for you. In Luke 1, verse 37, an angel says, for with God, nothing will be impossible. And listens to the words of Jesus himself. As recorded in Matthew 19, verse 26, Jesus said, with God, all things are possible. So God gives us hope when we're ready to give up on life. And God gives us hope when we're ready to give up on people. And God gives us hope when we may even be ready to give up on Him. We see the hopefulness of love. Ask yourself, am I hopeful? God's love can make you protective, trustful, hopeful. And number 4, God's love can make you strong. Notice at the end of verse 7, it says that love endures all things. Now, that Greek verb translated endures is literally to remain under. It's the verb to remain with the preposition under, to remain under. It was used in New Testament times as a military term for holding a position at all costs. So the idea here is that love holds its ground. We're talking about not giving up. We're talking about hanging in there. Back in verse 4, the phrase suffers long referred to patience with people, but here the word endures refers to patience with circumstances. I've got a friend named Ronnie who is an Israeli tour guide, and I think if I remember right, Ronnie's the one who told me this story. He was leading a tour, and so he had, his tour group, and it was the start of a particular day on the trip, and this bird just crapped all over this guy's shoulder. I'm talking about a member of the tour group. I mean, he just got bombed. Like, it must have been Big Bird, Big Bird on Sesame Street, because like his whole shoulder was covered, and he was not happy about it. I mean, especially to happen at the start of the day on an Israel tour, if you've been, I've been several times. I mean, you've got hours and hours and hours to go before you're going to be back at the hotel where you can get a change of clothes. So again, he was just miserable about it. Everyone could see it in his face. He's grumbling and complaining about it. And so Ronnie says to him, it's a blessing. And the guy says, a blessing? And Ronnie says, it's a blessing that cows don't fly. I'll let you think about that for a minute or two. That's what I'm talking about. Patience with crappy circumstances. Love perseveres. Like, it has its own kind of stick-to-itiveness. I'm talking about spiritual stamina and spiritual strength. This is why I say that God's love can make you strong. Endures all things suggests that we be strong by loving people even when we don't feel like it. Remember something we learned week 1 of the series, that although in the English we have some adjectives in this list, in the Greek text it's all verbs. So maybe we should think less in terms of Paul telling us what love is and more in terms of Paul telling us what love does. Like in general, people think of love in terms of a noun. But for us as people of faith, it's a verb. In general, people think of love as something that you feel, but for us as people of faith, it's something that you do. In general, people think of love as something that you find and lose, but of people of faith, we know that love is something you choose. C.S. Lewis writes in his book, Mere Christianity, do not waste time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Here he's talking about the feeling of love. Do not waste time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Act as if you did. As soon as we do this, we find one of the great secrets. When you are behaving as if you loved someone, you will presently come to love him. That's gold right there. Lewis adds, if you injure someone you dislike, you'll find yourself disliking him more. If you do him a good turn, you will find yourself disliking him less. That's good. Now, someone told me one time that we could think about this like a train where, on either side of the cars, you've got the engine and you've got the caboose. Now, most of us have emotion as the engine and we have the will as the caboose. And so that train ain't going any place until we feel like it. And when it comes to something as hard as loving difficult people, we're not ever going to feel like it. So that train's never going to leave the station. But what we need is to make our will the engine and our emotions the caboose, because the will can choose to leave the station. And when that train leaves the station, you know what's going to happen to the caboose? It's going to follow. And so when we choose as a matter of the will to act lovingly towards someone, we will find our feelings towards them slowly changing. Endures all things suggests that we be strong by loving others even when things don't go our way. And this is so hard. Man, when you're tired, when you're sick, when you're having a bad day, when you're in a bad mood, it is really hard to be loving. But I've asked this before, and I'm going to ask it again. If we're not going to love people then when? Because there are only so many zippity-doo-dah days in life. I mean, when was the last time you had a day where you weren't either sick or tired or having a bad day or in a bad mood or hungry or sore or all of the above? Like that's every day. And so, I mean, think about if we're going to save our love for those kinds of days, we're not ever going to be loving. You could compare it to other things that are important in the life of faith. Like if we only give when it's easy, then we're not really committed to giving at all. If we only serve when it's easy, then we're not really committed to serving at all. And if we only love when it's easy, we're not really committed to loving at all. So when we're that person that begins to master this, when we don't stop loving just because things aren't going our way, then people are really going to respond to that. And in a group setting, when we're the ones that don't stop loving when things aren't going the group's way, we're the ones that they're going to turn to and look to for leadership. Endures all things suggests that we be strong by loving others even when we're tempted to give up. Now, this is kind of a recurring theme here, but someone said, love bears what is otherwise unbearable. It believes what is otherwise unbelievable. It hopes in what is otherwise hopeless, and it endures when anything less than love would give up. So we see the strength of love. Ask yourself, am I strong? God's love can make you protective, can make you trustful, can make you hopeful, can make you strong. And finally, God's love can make you dependable. Look at verse 8. It says, love never fails. That Greek verb translated fails means literally to fall from. So picture like a flower and the petals falling to the ground, withering and decaying. The idea here is that love's flower petals never fall. To put it another way, love lasts. Or to put it still another way, God's love is fail-safe. Rather than thinking of it as a passing emotion, we should think of it as lasting devotion. Now, the rest of verse 8 tells us that love lasts, while even as great a thing as spiritual gifts do not. Look at it. It says, but whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. Verses 9 and 10 tell us that love is full, while spiritual gifts are not. Beginning in verse 9, for we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. By the way, some people think that refers to the second coming, that which is perfect. That it refers to the second coming, and some people think it refers to the completed canon. I've always leaned toward it referring to the second coming myself. But verses 11 and 12 tell us that love is the stuff of spiritual maturity, while by comparison, spiritual gifts are the stuff of spiritual adolescence. So, verse 11, when I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. Now we'll come back and catch verse 13, but let me just add that love never fails suggests that our love be fail-safe because it is authentic. And if our love isn't real, if it's contrived, it isn't going to last. We're not talking here about a synthetic faith, but about an authentic one, about a real one. And love never fails suggests that our love be fail-safe because it is consistent. Don't you love consistency? I mean, you could argue that consistency lies behind every success story. Like one of the reasons that Starbucks is so popular and so successful is because they're so consistent. Like, you go to Starbucks 10 times and order your favorite drink and it's probably going to be exactly the way it should be all 10 times. I mean, like if it's not 10 times, it's like 9 out of 10. I mean, they're shooting for 10 out of 10. That consistency is part of what makes it so popular. And it's what we want most from the people that we count on in life. Is consistency. We want them to be consistently loving. If anything, we want that love to be stronger today than it was yesterday. And love never fails suggests that our love be feel safe because it is dependable. It doesn't mean we're perfect. We're not. It does mean that we've embraced the way of love for good. That even if it's 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, we're not turning back. We won't give up. Can't stop, won't stop. So we see the dependability of love. Ask yourself, am I dependable? God's love can make you protective, trustful, hopeful, strong, and dependable. That 13th verse says, and now abide faith, hope, love, these 3. But the greatest of these is love. There's a saying, you've heard it, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Well, love is the main thing. Jesus said that it was the number one identifier, that we are his followers. And maybe love is the greatest because the Bible says God is love. It never says he has faith. He doesn't need it. It never says he hopes. He doesn't need that either. But 1 John verse 4:8 tells us that God is love. And I want to just ask you once again to consider using these verses as sort of a love inventory. You could take the verses themselves and not just the names that we've come up with for each point, but take the verses themselves and substitute your name in the place of love. Let's try it. I'll substitute my name and I'll try to keep a straight face, but you read it where you are and substitute your name. Alan suffers long and is kind. Alan does not envy. Alan does not parade himself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek his own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Alan never fails. How did you do? I'm feeling pretty uncomfortable. Oh man, let me just remind you of something that we've touched on, and now I want to close with. And that is that the word that Paul uses for love in this chapter is a word specifically for God's love. So when I asked at the beginning, like, how's it going for you? Are your relationships improving? And I said they can be, and I said they should be. And I feel that way here at the end of the message, just as strongly as I did at the beginning. But here's the thing. Our first thought is, well, I need more of my love for people. Like, I need to take my love and multiply it. That's not at all what Paul is saying. This is not a matter of quantity, it's a matter of quality. This isn't a matter of me needing to multiply the love that I have. This is a matter of me needing to share the love that God has given me. In other words, God is not asking you to give more of your love to the world. God is asking you if you will let him love people through you. Do you hear him? Do you hear him asking, will you let me love people through you? See, that's so doable. That's so encouraging. Like, I know if I just try to love more, I'm going to fail. But if all God is really asking me to do is to let him love people through me, man, that's really doable. Like, I could be a channel, I could be a conduit, I could be a pipeline. All I've got to do is not be like a container, not be like a reservoir, not just be like a pool. It's not just about me containing God's love, but it's about me channeling God's love, letting his love overflow from my life to the people around me. You can do that. We can do that. We can be more loving. We can transform the world around us. Why? Because love is all you need. Father, thank you for this great, great chapter in the Bible. for all that we've learned about love. And thank you for the reminder that it's not our love that's got to get better. It's our need to not just receive your love, but to share your love, to let you love people through us. Lord, we can do that. And you've called us to do that. And you're going to help us do that. So, Lord, I pray that for every person watching this online service, I pray that all of their relationships have been improving over the course of this month and would continue to improve as they allow your love to overflow from their lives. Thank you for that, Lord. In the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
So Al and I absolutely loved this series.
Awesome.
It was so good, so applicable.
Really practical, right?
It was really, really practical. And now I'm wondering, what's on deck? What's next?
So we are going to return for part 2 of our Outlier series. We did 1 Samuel, and now we're going to do 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel has got just everything imaginable in it. It's like binge watching your favorite Netflix show. But we get to see, how David, who is so much like us, but how he was able to live this extraordinary life. And, hopefully we'll be inspired to do the same.
Yeah. And with that, it's time to fill out a Connect card.
Yeah, go to our homepage, solachurch.life, scroll to the bottom. That's where the Connect card lives. Let us know you attended online, request information.
And don't forget, go and follow Sola Church on social media.
Yep, that's Sola Church LA on your favorite app.
And we hope that everyone has a great week. And we will see you next time at Sola Church Online.
Bye, everybody.